It's late, you're in bed, and the only light is a sliver from the hallway, casting long, dancing shadows across your room. You roll over, your eyes adjusting to the gloom. You look toward the chair in the corner, and you see it. A face. It's not clear, but it has eyes and a mouth, and it's staring right at you. For one terrifying, heart-stopping second, your home has been invaded by a monster. Your breath catches, your muscles freeze, but this isn't a ghost story. This is the story of how your own brain betrays you in the dark, and why it's hardwired to turn something familiar into something utterly inhuman. We've all been there, right? That pile of laundry you meant to fold suddenly takes on the shape of a hunched figure. The coat hanging on your door becomes a tall, slender man watching you sleep. But it gets even stranger. Have you ever glanced at a friend or a family member in a dimly lit hallway, and for a split second their face just looks wrong? The proportions are off, the expression is alien, even monstrous. It's a deeply unsettling glitch in reality where a loved one is momentarily replaced by a terrifying imposter. This isn't a supernatural event, and it's not a sign you're losing your mind. It's a fascinating story about the very nature of perception, one that starts deep inside your eyes and ends in the most ancient, primal corners of your brain. To get why your brain makes this kind of mistake, we have to first understand that what you see is never a perfect, one-to-one recording of the world. It's a reconstruction. And in the dark, your brain becomes a desperate artist, forced to paint a picture with almost no light, using some very old, very strange brushes. To unravel this mystery, we need to start with the hardware, your retina. It's lined with millions of photoreceptor cells, tiny light detectors that turn photons into electrical signals. But you've got two totally different kinds, cones and rods. Think of cones as your daytime specialists. They're clustered in the center of your retina in a spot called the fovea, and they're responsible for your high-definition, full-color vision. When you look directly at something, you're pointing your cones right at it, but cones have a critical weakness. They're practically useless in the dark. This is where your rods take over. Rods are your nighttime sentinels. They are incredibly sensitive, able to detect just a handful of photons. There are way more rods than cones, and they're packed into the periphery of your retina. They're the reason you can navigate a dark room. But rods have trade-offs. They don't see color, which is why the night world is grayscale. More importantly, they give you very low-resolution vision. They're built to spot motion in your peripheral vision, not to see fine details. The switch from cone vision to rod vision is called dark adaptation. It's why you feel blind when you first walk into a dark room. Your cones have gone offline, and your rods need time to power up by regenerating a light-sensitive pigment called rhodopsin. You'll start to see basic shapes within a few minutes, but it can take 20 to 30 minutes for your rods to reach their peak sensitivity. It's during this transition and in the low light state that follows that your visual system is most vulnerable. Your brain is being starved of the high-quality data it's used to getting from your cones. Instead, it's receiving a weak, blurry, black and white signal, mostly from the edges of your vision. Your brain, which hates incomplete information, is now faced with a choice: accept that it knows nothing or start guessing. And your brain is, above all else, a guessing machine. Here's the thing about your brain: it doesn't just passively receive information, it actively builds your reality. This is a concept in neuroscience called predictive coding. Your brain constantly makes predictions about what's out there based on past experiences. The information it gets from your eyes is then used to check and update those predictions. In daylight, the data stream is so rich that the brain's model of reality matches reality itself. But in the dark, that data stream becomes a trickle. The signals from your rods are noisy and blurry. Faced with this ambiguity, the brain's predictive model goes into overdrive. It takes vague outlines and aggressively tries to fit them into a known pattern, essentially running autocomplete on reality. It even amplifies the difference between light and dark to create sharp edges where there are none. This process leads directly to a phenomenon you've definitely heard of: pareidolia. That's the brain's tendency to see meaningful images, especially faces, in random patterns. It's seeing a rabbit in the clouds, the man in the moon, or a face on a piece of toast. But why faces? Because for us, faces are the single most important visual stimulus. Our survival depends on spotting and reading them in a flash. Deep in your temporal lobe is a region called the fusiform face area, or FFA. Think of it as your brain's hypersensitive facial recognition department. It's so eager to find a face that it will fire in response to anything that vaguely resembles one. 2 dots and a line is often enough. A 2009 study using magnetoencephalography, MEG, found that when we see an illusory face, the FFA activates at around 165 milliseconds, a fraction of a second slower than the 130 milliseconds it takes for a real face, but still incredibly fast and completely automatic. So, you're in bed, your eyes are sending blurry, low-res data to your brain. Your predictive coding system tries to match this noise to a template. That pile of clothes, it's just a random pattern of shadows. But the FFA, desperate for a face to process, screams match and imposes that structure onto the randomness. And you don't see the shadows slowly morph into a face. It's just there, instantly. A complete image constructed not by your eyes but by your brain's powerful expectations. So our brain is hardwired to see faces in shadows. That explains the illusion, but it doesn't explain the horror. Why don't we see friendly, cartoonish faces? Why do they so often appear monstrous, demonic, or just profoundly wrong asterisk? The answer is a perfect storm of 3 factors that turn a simple illusion into a nightmare. First, the catastrophic loss of detail. Your rod-based night vision is blurry. When your FFA slaps the template of a face onto a shadow, it's just a basic blueprint. It can place the eyes, nose, and mouth, but it can't render the fine details that make a face feel human. You don't see the gentle curve of an eyelid or the warmth in an expression. You get a grotesque caricature. The eye sockets become hollow pits, the mouth a gaping slash. This distorted version of a face falls deep into what's known as the uncanny valley, that unsettling space where something looks almost human, but its subtle wrongness makes it creepy and repulsive. Second is a bizarre quirk of night vision called the Purkinje shift. As you shift from cone to rod vision, your color sensitivity changes. Cones love yellowish-green light, but rods are most sensitive to blue-green. In dim light, blues and greens look brighter, while reds look much darker, almost black. So what does this do to a human face? The warm, reddish tones in our skin, which we associate with health and life, are basically erased. Skin can take on a pale, ashen, or even a ghostly, bluish hue. The face your brain is inventing is literally drained of the color of life, making it look pallid and corpse-like. The third and final piece is the dominance of your peripheral vision. Remember, your rods are on the edges of your retina. To see something faint in the dark, you have to look slightly away from it, so its light hits the most sensitive part of your eye. But this is the exact opposite of how we're built to see faces, and the FFA is optimized for direct, head-on viewing. In the dark, you're forced to use a system designed for detecting crude motion on the periphery to analyze something that requires detailed central processing. This mismatch is fundamentally unsettling. The face feels present, but you can't properly lock onto it. It's a ghost you can only see out of the corner of your eye, which just cranks up the creep factor. We've covered the static, staring face, but for many, the real terror begins when it appears to move asterisk. The expression changes, the head tilts. It might even seem like it's leaning towards you. If nothing is there, what's causing this motion? This is where the brain's attempt to stabilize an image goes spectacularly wrong. The answer lies in microsaccades, tiny, involuntary movements your eyes are making all the time. Even when you think you're staring at a single point, your eyes are constantly jittering. During the day, your brain has no problem with this. It knows your eyes are moving, not the world, and it easily edits this motion out of your perception because it has stable reference points. But in the dark, everything changes. The face you're seeing isn't an external object, it's an internal projection. There is no stable reference. So when your eye makes a tiny, involuntary twitch to the left, the internal image of the face shifts on your retina. Without a stable background to tell it otherwise, your brain makes a critical miscalculation. It doesn't interpret the signal as, "my eye moved," it interprets the signal as the face moved. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. A slight jitter of your eye makes the illusory mouth twist into a sneer. Another drift makes the hollow eyes seem to narrow. Your own involuntary eye movements are animating the monster you've created, making it seem alive. The shadow isn't just a static shape anymore, it's a dynamic entity that appears to be watching you, its expression shifting with malevolent intent. It's one of the most profound ways your brain can trick itself, building a terrifying animation from nothing more than a shadow and its own internal noise. By now, this process might sound like a massive design flaw, a brain error, but the truth is the exact opposite. This system isn't a bug, it's a critical, life-saving feature that has been fine-tuned by millions of years of evolution. It's not an error at all, but a deeply embedded survival mechanism. Put yourself in the shoes of our ancient ancestors. For most of human history, darkness wasn't an inconvenience. It was a mortal threat. The night belonged to predators. The ability to detect another being in low light was one of the most important survival skills you could have. Evolution favors the paranoid. Imagine two of our ancestors at dusk. One has a brain that needs 99% certainty before it identifies a shape as a threat. The other has a brain that only needs 10% certainty to sound the alarm. The first ancestor, demanding perfect data, gets eaten. The second ancestor runs away from a lot of bushes, sure, but he also runs away from the one real lion. He survives. We are his descendants. Your brain's nighttime visual system is built on this better safe than sorry principle. It would much rather commit a false positive, seeing a face that isn't there, than risk a false negative, failing to see a face that is. The cost of being spooked by a ghost in your room is a racing heart. The cost of missing a predator in the bushes is death. It's a wildly successful evolutionary trade-off. This hyperactive face detection is a form of hypervigilance. The fear isn't a byproduct, it's the point. It's your ancient alarm system screaming, "Wake up! Pay attention! Something might be there!" So, the inhuman face in the dark isn't a monster. It's a ghost from your own evolutionary past, an echo of a time when seeing things that weren't there was key to survival. If this has shed some light on your own late-night experiences, consider subscribing for more journeys into the science of your own mind. And let's be honest, we all have a story about this. In the comments below, share the creepiest or most convincing illusion your brain has ever cooked up in the dark. Let's compare notes on our overactive, beautifully paranoid survival instincts. What you see in the dark is a story written by your own biology. It starts with your eyes switching from crisp cones to ghostly rods. It continues as your brain, starved for data, uses predictive coding and pareidolia to force blurry shadows into the shape of a face. And it becomes a horror story when a lack of detail, the weird color palette of the Purkinje shift, and misfiring motion detectors combine to make that face feel alien and unnervingly alive. Now, it's worth pointing out that this super common experience is totally different from extremely rare neurological conditions like prosopometomorphopsia, or PMO, where people see real, well-lit faces as distorted. What we've been talking about isn't a disorder, it's the normal, healthy function of a brain doing exactly what it's supposed to do in the dark. So the next time you wake in the dead of night and see that figure in the corner, take a breath. You don't have to be terrified. You can be fascinated. You're getting a live performance of millions of years of evolution. You aren't seeing a monster from the outside world, but a ghost from the ancient machinery in your own mind. It's a powerful reminder that we are all navigating a bright modern world with a brain that was forged in darkness. It makes you wonder, what other ancient instincts are still running in the background of our everyday lives?